If I said to you, by swinging slower, you could not only strike the ball a lot better with every club in your bag, but you could also gain distance. It would sound sometimes a little bit unbelievable, wouldn't it? Well, this was a situation for John this week, one of my students. Comes to see me, you can imagine it. He's putting so much effort into each shot, not gaining a single yard. By the end of the session, we focused primarily on irons. We added almost 30 yards to his iron shots. And in his words, he says, Danny, I feel like I'm swinging so much slower, yet it's going so much further. I want to share with you, if you don't mind, the drill that I shared with him. I just think it works so well and it could help you too. Before I get to the video, look, if you're new to the channel, for your first lesson of mine, please consider subscribing. These videos just like this one every single week to try and help you improve your game. Plus, you never have to remember a thing. Everything we do here, I'll put into a free downloadable practice guide in the description box below. So by the end of this session, what I'd love for you to do is kind of get some of the enjoyment and feelings that John was getting from his session, where he was striking anything high irons and hybrids off the ground much better, hitting them further, which with what he said was a much slower golf swing. Before I do though, look, just take a look at a couple of these shots, right? This is shot number 1. I want you to notice the speed of my swing and the numbers on the screen. How hard did I hit that? So I've got 91 mile an hour worth of clubhead speed, 153 yards in total distance, right? That's pretty fast. Notice this now. Look different in the swing. 86 yards, I've swung slower, and what have I done? I've actually hit the ball 20 yards further. How have I done that? Quite simply, I have compressed the golf ball. What is compression and why is it so important? Very few golfers have really experienced what compression is, and the drill I'm about to share with you will help you really experience it. But what is compression in the first place? Ultimately, I have a low point here of 3 inches past the golf ball. What does that mean? It means that the low point of the swing, if the golf swing's an arc here, the low point here is the lowest point of the arc. I have struck that ball before the club has got to the low point. That's the first thing. So I'm striking the ball before the club finally hits the ground after that golf ball. What does this also do? Well, if I'm striking on the way down, I've actually got less loft on this golf club than I started with. This golf club has about 33 degrees of loft on it. I've turned that 33 degrees into 24 degrees of loft coming down. So super simple. I have simply de-lofted the golf club. Why do we want to do this? Well, it gives us a massive margin of error. If we can strike the ball, then the ground, it means that we don't ever risk hitting any ground behind the golf ball. If we strike the ball at the lowest point, we risk basically hitting the ground and really disrupting our strike. What I did on the previous one, there was probably a bit of strike disruption there, but more importantly, I'm striking it just behind the low point. On the previous one, I had 32, almost the loft of the golf club on at the moment of impact. There is the biggest difference. So all I want you to do now is, if you don't mind, is for me to give you a real simple drill on showing you how you can truly compress your irons. I just don't see amateurs being able to do this. Now, the first step in the drill, and this is what I shared with John, and I'd love to share with you, is ultimately a question. I often share this question to a lot of my students. It's really important because you've got to learn to feel the club head, and most people can. So have you ever had a conversation, for instance, with a friend or a loved one, and they've been chatting away, but your brain has been thinking about something else. You've been basically preoccupied. They then suddenly ask you a question, and you go, ooh. And they go, you haven't been listening, have you? Absolutely. And you know as well as I do, we've all been there, you haven't performed very well in that kind of relationship, right? In that conversation. Well, often what happens with a lot of golfers is exactly the same thing. So ultimately, your golf club as it's swinging, you need to be able to feel it. You need to be able to have this beautiful conversation. But if you're giving yourself all these various different instructions in your head, you're not going to be able to feel it. So if I want to teach you how to get less loft on this golf club, help you land the club in the correct place so you've got kind of a low point, you need to be able to feel this club head. So stage 1 in this process was I basically got John to hold the club and make some swings until he could feel the balance and the weight of the club swinging. Now, to start off with, you could see the tension, but gradually, as he started to get rid of a lot of these swing thoughts, he started to feel the weight of the club swinging backwards and forwards. Now he'd started to kind of feel that momentum. I needed to help him organize it in such a way that would help him get compression on this golf ball. And to do that, I said to him really simply, I said, right, John, now you're feeling the weight of the club. What I want you to do is start with your feet together. And when you're ready, I want you to step backwards to increase the momentum of the club on the way back. And then when you feel it, step forwards to increase the momentum on the way through. This is kind of what it looked like to start with. He did this. And I said, John, you're thinking about it, aren't you? And he says, yeah. He says, look, feel the momentum of the club. Get back into feeling it first. Feel the momentum and then step and go. And I kept quiet in this to allow him time to kind of experience the weight of the club. And as the club's swinging, I'm using each step to accelerate the club on the way back and accelerate it on the way through. Now, this is an experience. I could have said to him, John, step, then swing, step, then swing. These are good instructions, but they're often conversations that you're having in your head. I want you to have the conversation with the club. So he started to swing. 1, 2. And actually, I didn't ask him to do this. He started to do this. He went, okay. And he actually just started to hit a shot, moving on to the shot. Now, that wasn't my intention. I didn't ask him to do that. But it felt unbelievably natural. And you can see here, look, my low point starts to become after the golf ball. So the stepping action, just alone, right, just as a starting point in this drill, was absolutely brilliant at starting to organize his golf swing. Now, in John's words, the swing started to feel much smoother and easier. He started to really feel the conversation he was finally having between the club and his body. And he's even said, look, I can feel, Danny, how my body is now working with the club to accelerate it on the way back and then, look, accelerate it on the way through. But we still need to we don't want to kind of do stepping drills on a golf course, so we need to kind of put this into a real swing where we actually stand normally. But this was only step 1. What I did notice on camera was, when we look back, he was getting a great step and momentum on the way back here, but on the way down, I did notice he wasn't quite stepping early enough to provide enough momentum and strike. And what I mean by that is as he was beautifully creating rhythm on the way back, he would step and come down at the same time. What I wanted him to do, just as he was doing on the way back, look at this. The step happens very, very early to create momentum on the way back. And as I'm coming back here, I'm stepping very, very early. Why this is important? Because as I step, I'm moving where? Forward naturally. This helps me strike where? The ground further ahead of the golf ball. Helps me to strike it, right? Strike the ball. But also, it helps me to catapult the club for effortless power. Because as I get more pressure in this leg, what can I do now with that pressure? I can push and catapult the club through. So I knew it with just the stepping drill there, it wasn't quite getting those final touches into his movement. So let me show you what we did next. So all that was left now for John was to basically, in a sense, get more forward, to get that pressure in that leg earlier in that backswing so that it was already there so you could accelerate the club. Now, to do that, we just give him one extra drill. He really needs to feel this. So I'm going to use hack motion as a help to help me with this, and it's exactly what I use with John. So you get yourself set. Now, we swing into the top. Now, what I was saying to John, what was he doing? Well, when he's at the top of the backswing, he would, in a sense, move down with his arms and make the step at the same time. All that does, look, is there's just no power there. It's just everything's working together. You can't catapult the club. What I needed him to do was leave his arms up, get the sensation of basically stepping forward onto that front foot. Now he's there, look, now he can then catapult the club. So really simply, I need to experience it with a simple exercise. So just using some guided practice from hack motion. I'm going to use their casting drill on their app. So I get myself set here, and all we do is get ourselves at a dress position, swing to the top. I'm here, step, through. And what this does is it's going to show me that I'm naturally creating the correct transition on the way down that's going to give me the compression. Because if I did what John was doing to start with, it would look something like this. So I get myself set now, swing to the top. If I stayed here and I try to come down together, I'm going to get casting. Why? Because ultimately what happens is when you're coming down, in a sense, together, it becomes much more of a flick through impact. Yeah? Whereas notice here, when I'm swinging back here, and as I'm stepping forward, you naturally create lag and the angle necessary to strike the ground, then the ball on the way through. So a simple exercise, and it's also great because what it means now is it naturally transitions into a normal stance. So once we kind of got this feeling, and bear in mind, there was no quick fixes here. John was here for half a day, right? So what we did is we gradually kind of moved him into this, through these kind of stages, these kind of sequences, to a point at which we got the stance really, really narrow, but a little bit wider than normal. And then what we did is we got ourselves set up here and we do little steps, and now it would look like this. So the steps became smaller and smaller and smaller, to a point at which then all we did was, in a sense, got the sensation, and this is what he did. He actually did this. He liked this so much that he simply just swung the club forward and swung like that. So he left now, what he did, he left the feet alone, but he hovered the club above the ball just a little bit, and he loved the momentum, but the hack motion was giving him the device, am I moving my body correctly? So I'd swing back and through. Now I'm catching them a little bit clean because I haven't got the depth here, but you can see here what I'm doing is I'm still maintaining the necessary conditions to create that ball turf strike. Now, of course, not everyone's going to be able to kind of hover the club and swing it back, but these are stages to go through. And it's the idea behind this is to basically build that conversation between you and the golf club. Momentum on the way back here, 1, 2, 3. That's the thing that takes the time. But with correct feedback, using the drills and maybe some advice and feedback from devices like Hack Motion, this is how you gradually progress. And you'll see here, look, it becomes effortless. It's smoother, much more under control. And as I said, like John said, it feels just natural. Yeah, that's the word he used. It's very, very natural. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Maybe share it with one of your friends. And of course, look, if you're new to the channel, press that subscribe button and the bell. I'll leave a discount code for Hack Motion in the top comment below this video. If you like this and you want to see how this works with your driver, check this video out right here. But until next week, have a wonderful golfing week.